Joe Walsh thinks that Russia-Ukraine is a genocide, but Gaza is not, whereas Mehdi Hasan thinks Gaza is a genocide. I don't know if he's commented on Russia-Ukraine. Now, I think that they're both plausible claims. I can't prove either of them. I think the claim that Russia-Ukraine is a genocide is slightly stronger than the Gaza claim for genocide, but I'll let Mehdi explain the premise of this here.
Opponent of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, going as far as to call it a genocide. But when it comes to Gaza, you've criticized people for calling Gaza a genocide. Why is that, Joe? Why is what's happening in Ukraine a genocide, but not what's happening in Gaza, when far more people have been killed and displaced in Gaza than in Ukraine?
I think it goes to motive and intent. I think Putin is trying to kill, and he has been for 3 years, Ukrainian civilians. Kidnap.
I actually think, so it's a very interesting question. You have to go to the purposes of the war. Israel has a better cover for this war, right? They're trying to rout out Hamas. They can say Hamas are terrorists. They can run that on their media programs, their radio waves, right? Hamas are terrorists. We're going to war with Hamas. Hamas is embedded in the civilian infrastructure here, so we have to inflict immense damage on Gaza, right? That's their cover. Israel has much better cover here. So Putin, on the other hand, openly talks about de-Ukrainification, the Nazification of Ukraine, how it is an illegitimate identity, and how he's going to war with them. The initial purpose of the war was headed straight for Kiev to do a coup to essentially replace Ukrainian identity with Russian identity and implement someone who would be under the thumb of Moscow. So I think Putin's cover here is much more genocidal. It's super thinly veiled. Israel has more plausible deniability, of course, which is, and then if we look at the hard evidence, right? That's the mens rea. Now we have to look at the actus rea. Like, what have they done? Putin has forcibly deported and separated tens or hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian children to be re-educated in Russian re-education camps and kind of configured into Russian society, right? That is one of the genocide statutes, right? Separating children of one group from the group in order to destroy that group's identity. So I think you can build a case for genocide for Putin just off of that. He's also, if we want to talk about firepower, look at the siege of Mariupol. Where it's debated how many died, probably upwards of 10,000, I believe. Upper estimates are higher than that, lower estimates are lower than that. But just look at the drama theater strike, right? All the strikes on hospitals. Look at how many buildings were destroyed in Mariupol. At least Israel has some cover for destroying 70% of buildings in Gaza, but the matter of the fact is, in Mariupol, 70% and 90% of buildings were destroyed. And Putin doesn't even have the cover of the Ukrainian military embedding itself in the civilian population, right? Remember, Israel has the advantage here of Hamas being an actual real terrorist organization, and the Ukrainian military is very much not so, right? They're not launching rockets from civilian homes. They're not in and around hospitals. So there's no reason that the Mariupol strike should have been that deadly. They struck a drama theater that had very, very obviously labeled itself as a place for refuge for children. They had big white letters around the theater that said children in Russian, and to not strike it. And they killed everyone in that theater, right? There's no one who can possibly make the argument that the Ukrainian military was trying to use that theater for military purposes. That was just a clear disregard for Ukrainian life. Another thing to mention, like, Putin's genocidal intent is much different than other genocides, right? Like in the Rwandan genocide, or we can take the Holocaust or whatever, they're saying most genocides is this group of people is so fundamentally unfit and violent and oriented away from civil society, I'll put it. Therefore, they should be destroyed, and we should destroy them in these fashions, and we're going to implement this government plan to achieve that goal in whole or in part, right? Russia's genocidal intent is more of we don't think that the Ukrainians should be eliminated. We think that Ukrainians and Russians are one and the same, and therefore we should force a union between them, effectively denying Ukrainians of their own individual identity, which is de facto, it's like the same thing. It's just a nicer sounding form of genocide, right? But it's interesting to point that out. But Israel has they have done what Russia has done tenfold, I think, in their recent siege of food and water and fuel to the Gaza Strip and their 3-month-long starvation campaign. I think that is a clear war crime here. But remember, Putin has done that many times, like the siege of Mariupol, the first day, right? That was kind of how this whole thing started, or one of the first things that happened in his invasion. He, did a siege, and some Ukrainians had a humanitarian corridor to escape, but a lot of them got trapped. They could not leave. Nothing could come in, right? So at the very least, Putin is doing everything that Netanyahu is doing, but he's doing it in a way that has less plausible deniability and requires less investigation to really sniff out if his excuses are BS or not, because we know that they are. For Netanyahu, we need a little bit more proof, though some of his excuses are becoming very thinly veiled, with kind of the whole Hamas aid stealing line falling apart with the recent State Department report. The Hamas using human shields line is yet to fall apart. There's 2010s, 2000s evidence from the published reports from the human rights groups that kind of corroborates, yes, Hamas does use civilian infrastructure to conduct its military operations. It has definitely done so in the past, so I wouldn't put it past them to do the same right now. So, he has more cover there.
Ukrainian children. His intent is to kill civilians. You and I can arm wrestle. I don't think that's Israel's intent at all. I think Israel...
Even though Israeli government members have said far more genocidal stuff than Vladimir Putin has.
Completely. There are extreme members of Israel.
I would disagree with that. I think Israeli government members have said stuff that's more violent than Putin has said. Putin is more intellectual about it, right? He'll still talk about Ukrainian national identity and Nazification and this Russian-speaking genocide in Crimea. He'll use bigger words, and then the Israelis are like human animals, just calling Palestinians all sorts of names. It's more violent. Of course it's more violent. But I don't take any of what Putin says and connect it to his actions automatically. But that does work more so for Putin than for Netanyahu, because he is a dictator, commands the forces. But you have to have more direct evidence than that. We have to look at what was his plans in the start of the war. Well, he wanted to take over Kyiv to implement some kind of regime change to erase a Ukrainian national identity. I think that's a very moderate kind of understanding of what he was trying to do. Well, what was Netanyahu trying to do? Well, as far as his military plans go, I don't see any other explanation for it other than he's probably just going off of very loose intelligence. This person is moderately associated with Hamas. We're just going to bomb whoever and wherever they are, however many children are around them, however many women and children are around them, even if they're by a hospital at that point, we're just going to bomb them. Doesn't matter if 100 people die, right? They use their AI intelligence, like Lavender system or whatever it's called. So I think the Israel is more of a situation of loose rules of engagement that lead to a lot of death and destruction, and probably you could probably tie a lot of Gaza's infrastructure back to some kind of Hamas usage. Remember, Hamas is the government, right? You probably loosely tie anything to Hamas, and that's what Israel's done. They loosened their rules of engagement significantly. Before the war, it was just that they would kind of target in protective edge, pillars of defense. Name Guardian Wall. I forgot the name. They would target like Hamas commanders, like real high up people. Now they're doing anyone, even like in the less military branches of Hamas. They're targeting those people. Like, you can be a milquetoast, like Hamas sympathizer. You can have the wrong politics, and they'll probably kill you and count you as a member of Hamas and report that to the media as killing a terrorist. When in reality, you just want an 80-year-long occupation to end. And you just want a state. So It's an interesting question, really.
These government.
Not just executive members, the president, the prime minister.
There always have been, but
the president and prime minister of the country
I know,
have said stuff that Vladimir Putin has not said about Ukraine, and yet Joe Walsh. If you said neither's a genocide, then I'd be fine. We'd move on. We'll talk about other things about Gaza. What I find fascinating is that you're happy to say genocide here, but if you say it there, you get mad. I don't get it.
Well, I don't get mad. I just think
you do.
For me, it's just about clarity. Because for Putin, I know what he wants, and I know the level of lies that he's willing to go into to dupe his population into believing what he wants them to believe. Because he's done it in the past so many times, over and over. He's an enemy of America. He has no incentive to tell the truth. Israel doesn't have an incentive to tell the truth, because if they are caught in a massive lie scandal, the entire left and the entire right will turn on them, and that's kind of happening right now. That's kind of the pressure that caused them to relieve Gaza of the starvation campaign. Right? It was pushback from the right and the left in America, really, and even the far right people. Netanyahu said, "We don't really want to do this. We're just doing this to appease American senators because we want to achieve this vision for Gaza in a less bloody way." So that's kind of why I'm more inclined to directly call out Putin's language and connect it to his military action, right? Because at the end of the day, Israel is kind of beholden to us a little bit. They answer to us a little bit. We have a lot of influence over them, so they can't mess this up. They can't be as evil as Putin can be.
Some of your tweets.
I just think Putin's intent is to eliminate the Ukrainian
people. Based on what? His words?
Based on his actions.
Why is Israel's words and actions not the same?
Israel's actions and words. Again, you can find some, but Israel's
I could read you dozens. I'd be here all day if I started reading out all the genocidal statements from Israeli ministers.
I can find you a more history
Just a few days ago, the deputy speaker of the Israeli parliament and senior member of the Likud party, Netanyahu's party, said that the Palestinian civilians, his words, civilians, are scum, subhuman, and the women and children should be separated so that men can all be killed. That is stuff that Milosevic said.
Yes. They've said absurd things, of course. I just need to see that put into military action, really, and then it's a closed case. As soon as that occurs, the closest thing that we've gotten to that is the starvation campaign, which it seems like the far right in Israel kind of got their way with that, and they've got to lie about it for this long. With the cover of Hamas stealing 50% of aid, which we now know is completely false. That's the whole reasoning behind this. We need to see just a little bit more evidence, more independent verification. Exactly who are these strikes targeting? What is their rules of engagement? Do they have rules of engagement as they claim to have? And ultimately, is it in the IDF top-down command to destroy Palestinian national identity? I believe that's plausible, but not proven for Israel, and I think it's very likely for Russia, based on the purpose of their war, based on their actions, based on what Putin has said. It's all very different. Putin doesn't even have anything to hide behind. That's my main thing I'm going off of here. But yeah, I think Putin, I'm at like 80% confidence. Right, I'm not 100%. I think people would like to jump to 100% on all this stuff. 80% confidence for Putin, 40% confidence for. I still wouldn't take those odds. Let me just be clear. I don't think that there's going to be an ICJ ruling for genocide in this case. But I'll put it at 30% because I think there's stuff that I don't know that will come out. Like. There's already been tons of stuff I didn't know, or we didn't know beforehand, that have come out about how these aid distribution sites have worked, how Hamas's actions have worked. Like, it seems more likely now that they were actually working to protect the aid convoys than steal from them. That's more of an example, right? That was a plausible explanation before, but now it seems like the more likely one. But it's an interesting comparison.